Warm New York welcome, Chef. Thanks
Absolutely.
for coming.
Thank you.
My first time meeting you, but I ate at your restaurant years ago in Minneapolis.
Right.
And I remember walking in, and I passed by it, and it was a Native American restaurant serving Native American cuisine. And I remember going, I have never seen this before in America, which is really sad. Let me go in and eat it, and it was amazing.
Right.
Why aren't there more Native American restaurants?
It's a long story, and we talk a lot about that. But it's unfortunate that Native American restaurants are so rare in Native America, and so a lot of this work was really trying to showcase that this was possible, that we could have a modern Indigenous restaurant, and we have a lot of values. We try to purchase from Indigenous producers as much as we can. We change very seasonally. The restaurant's owned by a nonprofit, so we hire a lot of Native workers with us, and we have an amazing staff. We move a lot of money towards those Indigenous producers, and we're just kind of showcasing, because we never want to be stuck in the past, We don't want to. We've been through all this erasure, we've been through all this misunderstanding, but there's so much beauty here, and there's the food really kind of speaks for itself.
Absolutely, and I mean, the thing that struck me was some of the hallmarks of your interpretation of Native American food. There's certain no's in the restaurant that you don't have, which I found interesting.
Absolutely, because basically the philosophy was, in order to showcase and highlight modern Indigenous foods in Native America, we cut out European colonial ingredients that European immigrants had brought over. So there's no dairy, no wheat flour, no cane sugar, no beef, pork, and chicken.
No Jell-O.
No Jell-O, no ranch dressing.
No ranch dressing.
We won a James Beard Award for Best Restaurant in the U.S. without ranch dressing. It's good.
You beat the white people at their own award.
It's true.
Yeah, but I mean, no ranch dressing in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
How'd you get people in the door?
Oh well, they're coming. We've been sold out every night since we opened in 21.
Yeah,
so.
it's impossible to. Yeah, it's impossible to get in. I had to pull strings to try to have lunch there.
No, it's all
but
good.
That's also kind of what's cool, is that you gave people kind of a rally point. Because I think there's a lot of people out there who probably want to support Native American things.
Yeah.
And there's no outlet to do it. And the restaurant, I should probably say Owamni.
Owamni, yeah.
Owamni is a great place where it's a great rally point, where it's like, oh, I want to support not just Native American culture and people. I actually want to try what this is, and you can just go there and try it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very tangible, and people can experience this philosophy, and we're pushing healthy food, because everything in the restaurant's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, soy-free, pork-free, and it's just because that's just the philosophy of how we're cooking, and we're normalizing not only Indigenous foods, but eating healthier, a lot more plant diversity, a lot more protein diversity, and just kind of showcasing what's possible, and plus we're looking at all of North America, from Mexico through Alaska, which kind of reflected in this book that we just put out. But we see this whole situation, because these borders crossed us, and it's silly that we're seeing so much demonization of people because they're coming from south of the border and they're speaking Spanish, but English is also a foreign language in North America.
Right. Yeah. Go. Tell them. I'm down. Yeah, and I mean, just back on that idea of eating healthy, it feels like we kind of, as a species, humans, we kind of know more about nutrition than ever before, I think. And everyone, is trying to eat healthier now, and it feels like Native American food just fits perfectly into that mindset.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much plant diversity. Again, it's low carbs. It's just a lot of minerals and nutrients. There's a lot of this protein diversity. It's not over-processed food by any means, because these aren't the foods that I grew up with, because I grew up on a reservation. So I'm from Pine Ridge Reservation, which is third largest reservation. It's in South Dakota, and we have horrible statistics. We have really high rates of type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease. Our unemployment rates are through the roof. They're probably over 70% still today. And so there's a lot of issues out there, and that's what we're trying to address, is because as Indigenous peoples, we've been, not only lost a lot of our land spaces, but so much of our culture was stripped from us, which is a big reason why we don't see Native restaurants everywhere, Yeah. And so there's a lot of work, and the power of food is really important, because it's a huge voice that we all understand. We all eat. We all can
It's a
understand
cultural
food.
force multiplier for you, rally point?
Yeah. And I just think that it's something that pulls us together, and it makes people curious, and it, helps put a little empathy into things for people to think about, why don't we have more Native food out there? Why don't we have more Native restaurants out there? And what can we do to make that happen?
Yes. And so getting to, I guess this crowd doesn't support what you just said. But, no, it's okay. I know. The colonizer crowd. But let's talk. But that brings me to your book, which is that it's a book about Native American cuisine.
Yep.
And what's interesting, which I feel is kind of a burden on you, is that you, one man from Pine Ridge, is forced to kind of represent all of Native America here. And you do a good job of it. You go to the different regions. It's split up all the different regions on Turtle Island, which is the North American continent.
Absolutely.
And you talk a little bit about each region and the cuisine there, the type of people, how they live there. How difficult was it to kind of gather the information for this book? Because it's not just...
It was immense amount of work, and it took a community to put this together. So the two co-authors with Kate Nelson and Kristen Donnelly, we all played a certain role through helping to put this all together. But we also reached out to this massive network all over Turtle Island, in Mexico, in the U.S., in Canada, up in Alaska, and just talked to people to really get their perspectives. So it wasn't me trying to mansplain everybody's native foods out there, but it was really just allowing these voices to come through to talk about it and showcasing all of this massive diversity, because there's so much to talk about. And there's so little that people know about Native America across the United States, and a lot of that's because of our colonial U.S. history books that teach us nothing about indigenous peoples, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much knowledge about the plant usage for medicine, for food, for crafting, and there's just so much diversity to explore out there.
And there's also obviously the environmental angle.
Absolutely, because it's just showcasing, like, indigenous people had the blueprint to live sustainably anywhere, like pick a space around the world. And so because we had, thousands and thousands of generations of knowledge of what to do with the world around us, with the plants and how to live sustainably around there, there's a lot of amazing lessons that we could pull, because really this isn't just about Native Americans in America. This is looking at indigenous peoples, and we can apply this anywhere. This could be South America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, because we can just dismantle colonization and the values that brought, and really focus on this massive global intellect and knowledge base of indigenous peoples, of being sustainable with the world around us and all this diversity of food and culture that's out there.
Yeah, sure. And which is a worthy goal. And also, what's cool about your restaurant and recipes here, I think your interpretation of Native American food, to me, is that it's not like, and you make a point of this at the start of the book, is that you're not trying for historical accuracy here.
Yeah, we're not a museum. So.
Right. Yeah, you're not trying to eat what they ate back then. For me, it's almost like, if Native American culture had been allowed to modernize till today, if it had been allowed to develop, this is the outcome.
Absolutely, because we have this moment now that we can evolve all of our food moving forward. So for me, this is a book for the future, because I feel like I'm a futurist. I'm seeing a better way that we can celebrate diversity, not try to homogenize it. We can understand how to live closer. We can have a lot more plant diversity, and stop, calling everything a weed, but starting to learn the names of everything. I always tease that kids can name more Kardashians than tree species, because our education system sucks,
Right.
and there's so much more that we can do.
That's not fair. Some of these trees are called Kim.
That's true.
I'm confused. But yeah, all the recipes in here look beautiful. And just in time for Thanksgiving, I guess. Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up with Thanksgiving. I feel nothing about Thanksgiving. If you tell, I mean, how are Native Americans?
Well, I mean,
how do they deal with this?
We talk about
a lot Thanksgiving.
I have a lot of friends and family that don't celebrate it at all,
Sure.
and just completely ignore it, because it is very damaging to have this mythology, that just focuses on this made-up moment of history of Native and Pilgrims coming together, and so it's just so people just be like, well, we're paying respect to Native peoples, but you're also just saying forget about these centuries of land, moving you off of your land. Genocide, all these things that happened throughout U.S. history, but remember that time we had dinner together?
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Yeah.
But I feel like it is an important holiday that we do get a moment to come together, and if you want to pay respect and you want to, be an ally and, understand indigenous culture, pay respect, think about the land that you're standing on, learn a little bit about the history, learn about the tribes that are living by you, buy food from indigenous producers, buy a native cookbook,
And, I love it. I was very lucky to go visit the Native American Museum in DC.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I loved about it was kind of what you're describing, your vision of Native American culture, which is this kind of what if Native American culture had been allowed to modernize into today, and the building, the architecture is all Native American inspired. And you go in there, and what I loved about it was that it's not just misery porn.
Right.
It's celebratory as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the rooms in there it's a very bright room. I don't know if the exhibit's still there. The undertones are obviously upsetting, but the overtones, it's a bright room, and it was saying how everything in America is Native American. We use the names everywhere. Chicago, Illinois,
Minnesota,
Manhattan, you know, Washington professional football team. Like even the logos of like American Spirit cigarettes.
Sure.
We put them in logo. And we actually in America see Native American names and culture everywhere, but we never hear from them.
Right, yeah. And again, like, there's so much amazing stuff going on across Native America, you know, because we're starting to see more Native chefs come out. We're seeing a lot more Native media with TV shows and movies, and a lot more representation of Native peoples doing what they're doing, a lot more arts, a lot more just everything, you know. And I think that it is time for us to, like, not be pushed into the shadows and not just be, you know, pretending like we're just on these reservation systems, these segregated communities, but, you know, allowing us to be a part of everything too, you know. And I do expect this book to be banned in Florida, but but it's important because we should learn these histories because it's American history. Like, we all share the history here, you know, and we shouldn't be afraid of history. We should learn from it. And history can be really hard to read sometimes, you know, but I feel like we should understand the pain and trauma that some people had to go through, especially, you know, Indigenous peoples. Because like my tribe, Lakota, like, we were still battling the U.S. government till the turn of the century because, like, Wounded Knee Massacre happens in 1890, and that's not ancient history, you know. That's the point when we started losing a lot of our culture, because that's when we're being really forced onto the reservation systems. My grandparents' generation are going through boarding schools, having to cut their hair, learn English, learn Christianity, and just changing everything that they were from Lakota into something different, you know. But it's just layering on so much trauma to those generations that we still feel a lot of that coming through, you know. So if when you really look at what happened to Indigenous peoples and, you know, other people, like Black and Indigenous in American history especially, like, they're so interwoven together with the stuff that we had to go through, that, you know, food can help us pull through this, you know. I think it's important we understand our histories. It's also important that we see the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And, look, thank you so much for preserving it, and thank you for providing a rally point for people who want to be an ally, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, and I hope you can keep sharing it because there's a lot to learn. Thank you, Chef. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's Turtle Island. It's available now. Chef Sean Sherman.